Have you ever just felt stuck at a skill level in Valorant? What's going on, ProGuides? I'm Kangas, and I know lots of us have experienced this before. You grind your heart out playing ranked games, but over the course of hours and days, you just don't see the progress that you expected. You even start to wonder if you're just not good enough or your teammates are the ones holding you back. It's demotivating to play when you feel like you can't improve or even understand what's keeping you from moving forward. So today we're talking about the one tip that I wish I knew back in lower ranks, the one that would have completely changed my gaming experience. And that tip is to practice with purpose. Now, we've all heard the saying that practice makes perfect, right? Well, for the most part, that is true, but I think there's lots of people who believe in a slightly different statement. Perfect practice makes perfect. That doesn't mean just practicing as hard as you can, but also understanding your weaknesses and how to fix them. This is a concept that many people understand, but few actually put into practice. After all, Valorant is a video game. We're supposed to just have fun while playing, right? And it's much easier to play Valorant with no real goal in mind except to just enjoy yourself. But when wins and losses can dictate how we feel about ourselves or our situation in the game, we then run into a paradox where we want to enjoy ourselves but also desperately want to win. As such, we put in time to learn how to win by watching ProGuides videos and professional players on streams. But one of the dangers of having great resources to learn from is that people starting off often forget the mindset. Yes, watching videos is very helpful for finding the right information to improve, but without finding a way to implement it or practice it, that means that you'll more than likely just end up back at square one, wondering what went wrong in the process. And again, the answer to this is practicing with purpose. When you become aware of how and what you want to improve specifically, progress becomes less of a vague term that comes in the form of winning or ranking up, but instead in specific goals and practices. For example, you might want to improve your aim, or your agent's specific usage ability, or even your movement in the game. When you have a goal in mind, practicing takes on a whole new meaning in the form of achieving your goals. So what can we do to practice with purpose? Well, it might sound cheesy, but one of the best places to start is by actually playing with players that are better than you so that they can tell you exactly what you're doing wrong. Now, I know not all of us have Immortals and Radiant level players on our friends list, so if that's you, you can also check out ProGuides.com and sign up with one of our coaches. Having a better player tell you exactly what you need to improve is usually the first step to actually knowing what you should be focusing on. And you can also hear from pro players like Liquid Scream or Sentinels 10s and even Psalm from Dignitas, and we actually just released courses from each of them on our website as well, so if you're interested, go check it out too. So like I said, the first thing you need to do to practice with a purpose is understand your strengths and weaknesses. Simply put, you just won't improve until you start being aware of what you need to improve on. This is one of the key aspects of practicing with purpose, because without it, you're just blindly playing Valorant with no real direction on how to improve. Addressing mistakes and recognizing where you went wrong is imperative for improvement. But also on the flip side, it's just as important to pay attention to what you may be doing right, so that you can remember to replicate it when the situation calls for it again. If it's not a habit that you already have, you want to try your best to consciously start noticing your mistakes, making a mental note, and implementing a potential solution. Although your solution may not be the best answer, this thinking process must become like clockwork if you're serious about your improvement. For example, some questions you can ask yourself during downtime could be something like, how could I have prevented that death? Or how could I have gotten more out of that situation? Was I uncomfortable when taking that duel? And why? Having internal dialogues where you're asking yourself questions about how you reacted or played a situation is a great tool to growing as an individual. It can be scary at first to admit that you're only human and that yes, you will make mistakes, but trust me, once you're comfortable with accepting your current limitations, that is the first step to breaking them. But if you're making a lot of mistakes, don't let it get you down. There is such a thing as overanalyzing your mistakes, and that can definitely take a toll on your motivation. A few mistakes don't define your potential, and the road to whatever you want to achieve in Valorant will be inevitably bumpy at times. If something's seriously stumping you, just feel free to move on and revisit it at another time. Don't feel hard-pressed to find every mistake and then fix them right away. And lastly, don't forget to give yourself credit where it's due. If you've made a great play or decision, take note of that and reward yourself. Try and figure out the things that you did to reach that outcome and see if you can continue to replicate that in other ways in the future. It's just as important to work on your shortcomings as it is to reinforce the good habits or plays that you're currently doing. Again, it's a long learning process for everybody, so start slow and work your way up. Now, before we get into the rest of the video, we got our question of the day. What's one tip that you use now that you wish your past self knew? Well, you already know my answer to this, but I'm interested in knowing yours. Overall, there's a lot of things I wish I knew before I started, but actively practicing with purpose is something that has changed a lot of my past perceptions of how I approach improvement. But I'm curious on what that might be for you, so let me know in the comments down below. So let's say that you started asking yourself these questions and have taken mental notes on your weaknesses and strengths. Well, what now? In a lot of ways, just being aware of the issue is already a big step of improving, but there's more to this than just being aware. If you know what your problems are, then it's time to find ways to fix them. Or if you know what your strengths are, it's time to find ways to utilize them. This is where practicing with purpose becomes possible, as you can now target your training to satisfy your needs. For example, let's say that your aim is fantastic, but you notice that your spray control is kinda weak. If so, then it's time to head to the range with the sole purpose of training spray control. Or if your crosshair placement is weak when you turn corners, perhaps it's time to enter a custom game and practice clearing angles around the map. Finding ways to train a specific skill is always helpful, and there's lots of online tools and guides that can offer suggestions on how to target certain weaknesses, or even give you scenarios to actually practice. For example, aim trainers like Kovacs or AimLab. But if you can't find a good way to target your weakness, it might be time to start crafting your own. I've always had a problem with peeking corners and even just feeling confident swinging on enemies. One way that I found useful for practicing peeks and clearing angles is to use Sage in the range and place a wall in front of the bots at different distances, and then peek around the left or the right of the wall and react. Creating situations that you can use to isolate weakness is crucial. Once you can find ways to target your mistake, the rest becomes much easier. And now that you set yourself up through in-game reflection and finding ways to target weaknesses, it's now all about putting in the proper time and effort. That means just hitting the range or the aim trainer or the custom games to practice the skills that you want to improve. In the process of doing so, you'll want to find ways of tracking your progress in these skills. For aim trainers like Kovacs, AimLab, or just the range, there are tools that will let you see how you've performed in challenges, which could be a good way of tracking progress. For the studious and methodical players, keeping a journal of your weaknesses and continually updating your practice and results is a good method for tracking your progress. But if that's not your style, you can also just trust the process and take mental note of how comfortable you feel as you practice the scenarios. Whatever the case is best suited for you, being able to track your progress in a more definitive manner is way more productive than just basing it on playing ranked games and going off your wins or losses. Sometimes you could do the right thing only to get punished, or do the wrong thing and still succeed. Especially with how the ranked system feels so variant and coin flippy in the current state, improvement is really hard to track in an environment that has a high level of randomness. And the last thing I want to mention is how you can practice with purpose outside of playing Valorant. Now, I just mentioned this earlier, but aim trainers and outside tools have great methods to improve as a player. And you should feel lucky, because when I was growing up, comprehensive aiming tools did not really exist, and the ones that claimed they were only offered surface-level practice methods. Nowadays, it's become a much better environment, and for good reason. Whether you're an FPS pro or a complete novice to gaming, having the ability to train your aim outside playing the game can be a super useful tool for you. The two biggest ones that come to mind are, of course, AimLab and Kovacs. AimLab has much more welcoming UI and is also completely free to use. It also has collaborations with Valorant, with courses that target specific aiming aspects of the game. On the other hand, Kovacs has much more variety in practice methods that are built by a community of aimers that have the same mindset as you, to conquer weaknesses and master aim. However, it does cost around $10, so if you're not looking to spend the money, AimLabs will also do just fine. I've used both, and I definitely prefer Kovacs over AimLabs because the community is just much bigger and has more discussion over the intricacies of aim. Also, there's a community ranking system that has established guidelines and milestones for players to test their skill and then prove their aim prowess. But either one works. Other ways to practice outside of Valorant is even just to watch pro players play on Twitch, and then learn from their explanations and gameplay. For example, you can watch players like Tens or Scream if you want to get a feel of how top-tier pros dominate ranked games. Or if you want to watch something specific like Sovadart lineups, you can totally watch streamers like Average Jonas to gain insight on a cool way to implement lineups into your gameplay. As much as it seems unproductive, you don't know what you don't know. So watching better players is a great way to open your eyes to new ways to approach the game, or even just improving your understanding of how to perform consistently. Apart from that, just thinking about the game is always a great way to work through the things that we covered earlier in the video. Whether it's weaknesses and strengths, running through scenarios in your head like clutches that you could have played better, or big plays that you already made, these can all naturally help you understand more of your tendencies and also better understand how to tackle future situations by building your intuition. And of course, as always, I gotta say, check out ProGuides.com if you really want help in any of these aspects or want personalized coaching from high-level players. It's always good to have a mentor in-game who you can learn from and always ask questions to. But either way, hopefully this video helped you understand how to practice with purpose. Now that you know how to improve efficiently, it's just time to grind. Yet, although Valorant is a game with a lot of nuance and aspects to master, it's still most important that you're enjoying the ride. Try not to burn out, because at the end of the day, we still play Valorant because we love the game, right? Anyway, that's all that we have for today. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to comment and subscribe, and also leave a like on the video. Let us know if you liked it and if it helped, and make sure to hit that bell notification so that you always stay up to date with the latest Valorant news, updates, and guides. Once again, I'm Kangas. Best of luck on the grind, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.